Hello, friends. Welcome to the continuation of the week 1 of the spoiler tournament. My name is Kern. I am joined by Mercer. How's it going, Mercer?
Pretty good. Looking forward to this one. Two very skilled runners today we've got for everybody.
Yeah, I think it should be a pretty good matchup.
And of course,
go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to say, I should have done this in IRC, but I did not ask. Is it Osse or Osse? Do you know?
I've always pronounced it Aussie, so if that's wrong, then I've embarrassed myself every time I've ever gotten to it.
Okay, well, I'll follow your lead, so if there's anyone to blame, it's you, and then I can just hide behind you. How's that sound?
We can just
Trace.
He's using the vanilla Sprite.
There you go. Link and Grunkle Stan. But yeah, it should be pretty good matchup between these two runners. I think that in my evaluation, I think that they're probably pretty close in skill level. So, but the thing is that close matchup means something different in spoiler tournament. To me, it's more about the odds of either player winning and not necessarily the finish times between them. So it will happen that we will get close finish times eventually in this tournament. But as the tournament goes on. But in general, you do expect to see large gaps between runners by the end of the race.
Yeah, it's definitely a format that accentuates certain randomizer skills, and then others don't show off as much. Like routing on the fly is hopefully not a thing, but our runners are often starting in Link's house.
It looks like we're getting a little bit of palette shuffle from Osse here.
Looks like they're both agreed on the first opening move. They're both heading for Link's uncle. And maybe the chest right here.
Yeah, looks like both are going for the chest. This is very nice to have the, space of mind to route in your first bombs. Especially early game, these consumables can be quite important. And I guess as we're getting started here, we should probably just give a description of what is even going on. What is even this mode about?
Yeah, absolutely. So 15 minutes before the race started, we, and by we, I mean the bot that rolls the seed, gave these runners a text file that has locations of all of the items, as well as what our pendant and crystals are, what our tree pulls are, and some other miscellaneous information. They had that time to construct a route to try and get through this game as quick as possible. The settings are the same as a open 7-7 randomizer seed would be, the most typical mode you see the game played in, where you have to get 7 crystals, climb to the top of Ganon's tower and kill Aghanim, and then kill Ganon.
Yeah, so it's the fact that they have the log is very antithetical to what we normally think about when we think about randomizers, since usually there's so much, risk reward involved, and there's gambling, and there's always outs and chances that you could just get one over on your opponent through lucky play or whatever. None of that exists in this mode. In my opinion, this is what I think of when I think about pure randomizer. So, because it's not a test of risk reward, there's no variance. Or maybe you could say that there is a little bit in some boss RNG or stuff like that. But it's both basically the ultimate test of your game knowledge, your routing, and your execution. And that will be tested very heavily throughout this tournament because you tend to do this very low percent. As low percent as you can possibly manage is the goal, is the ideal. And people ask me, what is the appeal of this? Especially as a viewer, but just in general. What is the appeal? And I think that that's exactly it. Because what you see incredibly difficult challenges and obstacles presented to players. And you also get to see what happens when your routing becomes unfettered from gambling and from things like metas. And you just get to kind of play in a more optimal way. And I think that's really cool to see.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to watch some of these low percent boss fights in particular. So we've seen at about the 2-minute mark, we saw the full Dark World access kit gotten between the two runners with Walther pulling the Moon Pearl out of the back of Sahasrara's closet, and then Osse getting gloves and hammer from Kakariko. And I expect they'll probably trade places now.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to kind of cover each other's tracks here.
Yeah, we also saw the mirror out of the Ice Rod cave, which Walther has gotten.
Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, it's just good.
It's an interesting thing here, like to see little bits of divergence here. They haven't yet reached a point where there's an obvious next play or whatever. They're just like, I need to get these items somewhere early before I reach this checkpoint or whatever. So you'll see this quite a lot throughout this race and other races. It's kind of like an ebb and flow of, we kind of go our own way and then we kind of sync back up again when the seed bottlenecks. And this seed in particular, I'm not going to give anything away, but I would not be surprised if both runners were tearing their hair out trying to figure out what was the most optimal way to route this, because there were many interesting things that the seed is throwing at them.
Yeah, they've gone different routes so far, and I'm guessing here we're going to see different paths into Dark World, because Osse has taken the portal south of Link's house, and Walther might be going into Kakariko from the south in order to take the village portal as soon as the hammer and gloves are in hand.
Yeah, it could be. And I just want to shout out that it looks like Osse has routed in intentionally a few heart pieces. I think this is really smart. Hearts are very valuable as a safety. They're not the most valuable safety. That mail that Osse picked up is the most valuable safety in the game, but in my opinion, and I also happen to be right. But anyway, there also are heart containers, which can be quite valuable. But if the seed is lacking in heart containers, trying to find those heart pieces can be huge. And I happened to find some that were relatively on the way here.
I was wrong. Walther's saving and quitting out anyway, so we'll be going into the Dark World from the south of Link's house portal.
Now, if you haven't already heard this enough from commentators in this week one, I still think it bears repeating while we're in the early stages of the tournament. These runners are not only allowed to watch the broadcast or watch each other stream, but they're also welcome to. So we saw Walther in chat right before the race started. I know he told me that he was going to be watching the race and looking at chat. So he's here with us, although he probably can't hear my voice. And I wouldn't be surprised if Osse's here as well.
And we see the boots off the catfish, well worth that long walk, might even be required. As you can see on the restream, if you're watching, our tracker has pre-filled in which dungeons or pendants and crystals. That's just because neither runner will ever do a map check, so we just get that information from the log so that chat can know what's going on there.
Osse taking his boots, and it appears that Osse's got a little bit of a lead, having got those boots first. Walther's about to get them as well, but we just have to keep in mind, of course, that Walther has picked up that mirror. So I would say that they're about neck and neck at this point.
Yeah, the mirror will be a little faster to pick up at some point for Osse with those boots. Even better if the flute gets found at some point along the way. But if they go somewhere where the mirror is useful, that can save a lot of time for Walther.
Oh, Walther's got to be careful here, down to one heart. I don't think the Brox would kill him. I'm not actually sure, but I think colliding with those enemies would kill him.
Yeah, I think the rocks are half a heart with blue mail. Meanwhile, we see the lamp grab from the chest game there on Osse's side. Always very nice. Could also be required. We haven't seen the fire rod yet.
Now Walther with his boots, we'll see where he goes as well. Maybe this is a linear kind of bottleneck moment where we need to come to Village of Outcasts, or Yeah, it looks like he's also saving Queen to the sink, so it could be same play.
Yeah, you definitely like having the boots for Thieves Town. That and Desert are probably the two dungeons that get improved the most by having them. A lot of long, straight corridors.
Yeah, Thieves Town, very nice to have the boots. And you know, the thing is like, if you're going to grab the boots at all, either because the seed forces it or because you think that it'll save you time in the end to go to Catfish, then obviously the earlier you get them, the better, right?
Yeah, for sure. And one of the things about spoiler is, you know, we can see that Desert is a crystal. Our runners will know if it is boots locked, or the less likely event that the GT big key is on the torch there.
Yeah, I think it's like, it feels funny to talk about chances when we're in spoiler mode, but I think if I'm remembering correctly, it's close to like 50% chance that Desert is logically boots locked, even if it's not actually boots locked. Like if there could be a small key on the torch that would technically boots lock the boss.
Yeah, I've not actually looked at the algorithm. I'm not sure if it's exactly 1 in 22 if all of the possible locations for the big key are the same, or if key logic changes that at all.
It's relatively close to 1 in 22, yeah.
So we see both our runners opting for that full heart container. A lot of people tend to try and target 7 hearts and blue mail as kind of a, you know, if you can route that in, it's very nice. It tends to depend a little on the runner and also your opponent. Like you might skimp on safeties some more if you don't think you can win without doing that.
Yeah, it's a really hard call to make because on the one hand, if you feel like you don't have a lot of breathing room against your opponent, you're kind of incentivized. Oh man, Walter getting the God Pixel lineup, but unfortunately does not have the sword to dash through that enemy with that bad RNG. But yeah, it's an interesting conundrum because, you know, you're like incentivized to not pick up the safeties if it's going to be close between you and opponent. But that's also a very good reason to pick up the safeties because
Yeah, the
you don't have.
moment you die, you've lost more time than picking up the safety probably would have cost you, and you still don't have the safety.
Yeah, and another part about safeties, which I think is probably the most underrated part about having safety, is that it allows you to more confidently move through rooms. So you don't have to go as cautiously, you don't have to stop to pick up fairies or hearts or quaff potion or whatever, and you can just be okay with, oh, I accidentally took a hit from a pokey. You know, I'm okay with if I accidentally take a hit from a pokey versus how do I need to play differently in that room if I'm in one hit KO mode. And sometimes that throws you off enough that you actually die because you're playing differently. And I think that's a very huge part of having extra hearts.
Ooh, and we find a bow over here in the C-shaped house. I admit the palette swap always throws me slightly off because I look over and I'm like, well, that looks kind of like Pod.
Yeah, it is also messing with my, like, at a glance. Where are we again? Yeah, Aussie's apologized in IRC for the palette shuffle. I think that was an accident to leave it on.
Okay. That was a sort of vanilla-ish fire rod. That's where the big key is supposed to be, but, you know, the big key chest would have it normally.
And interesting choice here from Osse. So Fire Sword, or Fire Sword? Wow. Can you imagine? Fire Sword. Okay, Fighter Sword, Mothula. This being a spoiler race, knowing where the swords are, this could be because they really need the Fire Rod for some other thing or really want it for some other, optimization reason. But you often see people not go into Skullwoods when it is a Crystal in spoiler races, their first trip to the Village of Outcasts, simply because the more swords you have, the much, much faster, not to mention easier, this Moth fight becomes. So this could be an indication that those swords are hard.
It's also not even a crystal in this seed. This is actually the green pendant.
Ah, right, yeah. That too. So we can assume that there's something required on Sahasrahla with this play.
Yeah, or the other item in Skullwoods. We only sell the Fire Rod. Hammer strats on Mothula. This is not an easy version of the fight because of the hitbox.
Yeah, but actually this does make a lot of sense to me now that I think about it. Because it's like, if the difference was, if you're really confident with your hammer Mothula, you don't even really use the Master Sword much anyway. So it's like, unless you can come here with Tempered Sword, there's no reason not to just do the hammer Moth fight when you have Fighter Sword.
It's very nicely done. That hitbox, especially the up-down hits, are pretty difficult. Did get the side-to-side hits on a couple of them, but also worked with the up-down hit, and I don't think invalidated any of the attacks with spikes.
Yeah, he played it cautious there when Moth was in the area where spikes would have invalidated, so just good awareness from Osse to know, I'm not even going to try, because that's just going to be canceled.
We're not going to wait long to find out what that was for, and it is our other glove upgrade.
And now Walter on Moth. Oh, nice spin there. Wow, that was really fast. I just want to shout out that spin tech. Moth was up against the ceiling, so he could have tried to go for a hammer hit there, but it's a lot more likely than not that would have been canceled by the spikes. By going for a spin while Moth was moving laterally across the top, he is vulnerable while Moth is over that block, and he timed the spin so that he would release it at just that moment. And sometimes you can even get a double spin there. I'm not sure if that was a double or not, but anyway, nice fight from Alt.
Yeah, and with Osse going over to get the mirror, the convergence will be pretty close to complete here. I think Osse is going to be very slightly ahead.
Oh, right, because Walter still has to turn in the green pendant.
Yeah.
It looks like he's routing that in with Pod, however, so that actually might eliminate that lead.
Yeah, because he can mirror and then do Pod and Eastern together.
But Osse is dashing back. So looks like that this is just, one of those cases of 6 of one and a half dozen of the other, or for our EU friends like Walter, 500 meters of one, 1 kilometer of the other.
Kilometers, 1,000 meters, right? But this is actually a pretty significant divergence.
Or half a kilometer, that's what I meant to say, half a kilometer.
He's stepping in dependent ice without the Cane of Samaria, for that matter.
Yeah, because it's like Osse routed in the mirror later, so he could route it in with ice. I'm assuming that Flute is not very accessible. Nice bomb strats on these Pain Gators here, and almost gets all of them. Looks like he had a strat that's developed to get all of them, but just missed it. Speaking of the Flute. So I don't think either runner's route here in the end. Walter choosing to get mirror early so he can route in Sahasrahla with Pod Eastern, or Osse choosing to route in mirror with Ice Palace. is really practically better or worse than the other strat. It's probably about even. Oh my god, Osse using the Whirlpool, you Galaxy Brain. What a Galaxy Brain play. To use the Whirlpool to come back to Kakariko to activate the flute. That is so cool.
Yeah, I never remember where any of those go except the ones up to Zora and to the witch's hut.
Yeah, that particular Whirlpool is one that you don't often see used in the randomizer. Very rarely does it save you time, but spoiler is one of the few situations where you can plan in Galaxy Brain stuff like that. Yeah, I agree with what Ajur's saying. Like, I'm not sure it's actually faster, especially because you could have save and quit from the chest where you got the ocarina and not walked out of Ice Palace from there. But you know what? You get cool points anyway.
Well, Walther does finally get Master Sword out of the vanilla big key chest of the pod.
Yeah, this is our second sword. Pretty deep in the seed. So Osse picking up that powder obviously unlocks Magic Bat, but is also like a nice safety. So, I mean, it would be worth it to go into Marsha just for that.
I think it's probably next on my list after the armors.
Yeah, it's nice to be able to top up on the many anti-fairies that are right before boss fights and stuff like that. And also picks up the cape. So it's saw that we got a raid here from SpeedGaming Francais. So welcome all. Race in progress. This is a spoiler race. The runners know where the things are, and they're doing their best to execute a route that they've planned in 15 minutes. So far, even though they're in very different locations, I would evaluate that these runners are pretty close together. And they're right now, this is the most significant moment of divergence between their planned routes.
Yeah, I would agree. We do start seeing desert here. Which isn't even logically locked, it's just hard locked to boots, so you had to go up to Catfish.
Yeah, that's the reveal there. That, yeah, so the earlier the Catfish, the better, since it's actually required. And, ooh, taking a stop off here in Desert for that Sang Heart.
Sang Heart always just gives me a warm, fuzzy feeling when I find it in the randomizer. Probably less so in spoilers since you know what's happening.
Yeah, I guess it depends on where it is. Like, pre-Moldorum chest Sang Heart? Oh, baby. That feels great. Nice turtle room from Walter here. Doing that the way that it should be done. And we're going to have some synced up boss fights. Osse on Fire Rod Landmo, while Walter is going to try to do a Master Sword Helma. I say try, like I think he's not going to do it, but...
Yeah, with the time for the cutscene and all, they might even finish around the same time. Helmaster's definitely a longer fight.
Pretty synced. Wow, that I swear that explosion on Helma was like longer than normal. I don't know if Walter had lag or what.
And Walther gets back some time from Osse's longer health refill. Or magic refill, rather. I don't know why I said health.
Yeah, we'll see if Walter can avoid that much magic refill himself when he's on Landmo. Osse popping off your magic bat.
Ooh, another sword upgrade.
So this is an interesting route. You know, it is. Yeah, because they had to do right. Okay, and I'm just trying to think through the route. They had to do Mothula because that's what allowed them to get the mitts before they got that sword.
Yeah, and I guess Walther could have done Palace of Darkness before that, but then you have to make an extra trip over to get the mitts.
Yeah, exactly. And like I said, it's, you know, if you're confident on your hammer moth fight, then you don't actually save a lot of time with better swords. Just gonna take a second here as we're watching them cover some standard boss fights and stuff here, Armless fight, to remind folks to give these runners a follow if you like what you're seeing here. This is a really close match, I would say, so far, and well executed and routed. And this is what I would expect to see from both of these runners. So if you like Rando played well, check out their channels.
Yeah. Meanwhile, we do see on Osse's side that the cape was hard required, as Quake is our entry to both Mire and Turtle Rock and is locked by the cape. That is the checkerboard cape.
Walter now whipping out his fire rod. I gotta imagine this is, yeah, the Ice Palace play. I think actually he has to come here next, now that I think about it. He is bottlenecked until he comes here, based off of what we know so far.
Yeah, I mean, you could get up the mountain, but you'd rather just go get the flute now. You're going to need it for Mire anyway. Meanwhile, we see Osse going into Hera, making it 3 for 3 on Pendant Dungeons, getting the Cane of Samaria in a very quick dip.
Yeah, luckily the Ice dip and the Hera dip weren't too deep. But you hate to see it.
The Hera dip, it's longer to get to Hera than it is to go in and grab that chest by a lot.
Yeah, that's true. Good point. Ooh, Walter doing the also a consistent setup, but misses it here on this bottom one. That's a setup I recognize that Koi is a huge proponent of, but I do think that Walter might have placed one of those bombs on the wrong pixel or something.
And meanwhile, we do see Osse now routing in pod and probably Eastern as well. We'll save a couple seconds in pod by having the Cane of Samaria to unlock the route to the boss.
Yeah, but smart move from Osse to do that. I mean, I guess this is all just a consequence, right, of the same thing, of him deciding to do Mirror into Ice Palace while Walter did, Mirror to go to Saha Eastern Pod, because Walter didn't have that option, right, to go to Samaria first while he was in Pod. It's interesting how these very small time gains in these certain areas are playing out, and what seems to me on the surface to be just a very tiny divergence in route. Oh man, I am losing it here in pod. I can't even tell where the floor is on Aussie's side.
He's about to go get Tempered Sword out of the vanilla big key chest, which will also be a nice time save over Walther's Master Sword slashes on Helmasaur.
Yeah, Walter also taking the time to pick up the powder. So these runners have decided, you know, I want that tempered. That's going to save me time in the end.
Yeah, if that's the more convenient than wherever the last sword is route to Tempered, it's definitely going to be worth the time invested over the course of the seed. Especially if you don't get silver arrows, it's a big difference on cannon.
Yeah, and we try not to reveal information from the spoiler log in case the runners are listening, because we don't want to inadvertently help them. So if you hear us be cryptic about locations, that's why. But I feel comfortable revealing to you where the other bow is, because it's not going to save the runners time to get it. So in this case, I feel comfortable revealing that the other bow is on Lumberjack Tree. So no, we are probably not seeing Silver Arrow pickup today.
I feel very, very confident that we are not seeing that picked up today. I don't know that either of them feels like it's worth spending, 4 or 5 minutes to get those.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Walter avoiding that Sank Heart that Oss picked up here in Desert. So it's interesting. Ossie has routed in a couple of extra hearts. I think it's really just the difference of the 4 heart pieces that Ossie has routed in. I don't actually remember if he routed in all 4 yet, but that plus the Sank Heart in Desert puts him on 7, whereas Walter's still on 5.
You'll hear a lot of runners talk about 7 as the number where they feel comfortable. In a lot of cases, that lets you take 2 hits from different damage sources when you're in blue mail.
Yeah, it can definitely make it much more comfortable. But if you feel confident, like, blue mail, 5 hearts, if you feel confident with that, then it's like, maybe I don't need to go out of my way. It could also be just a function of maybe Walter didn't have time to look for the heart containers before the race started. So let's not give Walter too much credit just yet. Also very nice turtle room from Ossie. Almost gets it in this first cycle here. Walter going to at least a 3rd cycle of Landmo. Is going to lose some time here over Ossie, who I believe did it in 1 cycle?
I
actually can't remember.
1 cycle.
1 and a bit.
Yeah, got it like right at the start of the 2nd cycle.
And I believe that was a 4 cycle for Walter, so that equates to probably about 20 seconds, or maybe less than that, because it's 2 versus 4. It's probably like 15 seconds or so that Walter lost there over Ossie.
Yeah, so at this point, Walther's ahead the Eastern clear, but Ossie has picked up several items that Walther hasn't done yet.
Yeah, Walter going to clean up one of them right now. He could have picked up that powder just for the safety. I kind of doubt it, though.
Yeah, I actually don't remember where the 4th sword was offhand, so I don't know if it's that much of a difference. The powder was right on the route to the Cape, which we do know is required.
Man, Ossie now at 8 hearts. Was there a heart on the... Oh, there's a heart in pod. No, wait. Yeah, there's a heart in pod. I think they just grabbed it.
Yeah, Walther picking up one of the ones that he didn't have yet with the top of Spectacle Rock.
So we're very nearly going to be at parity again. Osse finishing up the crystal that Walter has over him. Walter picking up the sword that Osse has over him. Looks like Walter's going to come out of this just barely ahead, but not by very much.
He's still gotta go pick up Quake as well.
Oh, good point. Where's that at?
Bumper ledge.
Ah, yeah, no, that's going to put Osse ahead. I would imagine.
Think so, but I think it's a very slim margin. Like one slip up at some point could be all of the difference.
Yeah, Osse going for the new Armos quick kill strats. Nice. Nicely done. That is a hard one to learn, especially if you're used to the old quick kill strat. It has very different rhythm and pattern to it. Even though it looks very similar, that shot to the south just really changes things. But pulls it off very flawlessly. Yeah, so Osse exiting Eastern here, menuing to Flute as Walter is just entering the Dark World to pick up that Quake. Will give Osse about a probably 45-second lead over Walter here heading into Swamp.
Yeah, if that's even where Walther chooses to go, could go do Meyer or something instead.
Yeah, that's true. They could continue diverging because at this point, it may not matter the order that they clear the dungeons in.
It's really just the Ice Rod that they need to find at this point.
Yeah, Gwyndian Knight in chat pointing out that it's almost just the difference between the extra Landmo cycles ish, and yeah, I would largely agree with that. That is probably the most significant difference between the two runners right now. And it could be minor routing stuff and or execution stuff. Like we saw Osse get a quick kill on Armos Knights, even the optimal quick kill, whereas Walter missed the quick kill. So just little stuff like that. I think this might be a race that we see is decided by that. Very often in this first week, especially, we've seen a lot of races decided by what I would characterize as blunders, either small routing mistakes that end up having large consequences or deaths or stuff like that. But this race so far, there hasn't been any what I would characterize as blunders. And this could just be a pure match of wits and execution, which would be exciting to see.
Yeah, I think the finishing times are going to reflect that too, especially given, required green pendant, required dips into the other pendants. Just not a very friendly seed layout, and I expect they're both actually still going to finish with very good times.
Yeah, looking at the log when we were talking about this pre-race, we were discussing what could be the route. And I thought, maybe sub-hours possible with this, but it would be very tight. Walter, I think not having sword beams did not go for the one cycle Wizrobe strat. So that could also be another thing that loses him time over Osse if Osse decides to do it. Just a few seconds, but that's what's that's the difference between these runners here. I mean, maybe it adds up to a minute total, but a minute is just a collection of seconds.
And we see Osse doing the route for the diver down glitch. We'll see how quick he can execute this. That was pretty quick.
Yeah, nicely done. Was that rupees that Osse just picked up there?
Yeah, it looked like 50 rupees.
Yeah, one thing to note about these chest pickups that don't end up having anything, it can be just a function of muscle memory, which is, for chests like that, is very real. But sometimes it can be like, you know what, I would really like if I accidentally picked up extra arrows here, but I'm not going to look in the log to find out because it's literally going to cost me just as much on my absence of mind to check as it would be to just open the chest.
Yeah. That was nice. Does not quite get the 0 cycle though.
Yeah, it was very close though. And the thing about the 0 cycle is like, if you miss it, but you still get the 1 cycle, you're totally fine.
Walther using spooky action on his side. Looks like he got it. It's harder to tell without we're listening to Osse's audio, but yeah, clearly gets it going through that room.
Yep, and getting a little bit bullied here by the bunny beams and the anti-fairies, and now he's trapped between two slime balls. Has to take damage to get out.
Right.
That is the oh, I forgot what his name is, but his sprite, the Grunkle Stan sprite, is from Gravity Falls, and the pyramid guy is like the main enemy of that series. Forget what his name is.
Okay, it looked like it was a, rampaging Triforce or something. I'm not familiar with Gravity Falls, I'm afraid.
It pretty much is. It's like, yeah, people chat saying Bill Cipher's his name. Yeah, that sounds right.
And Walther having to use sword strats, but the lack of arrows, that is a little unfortunate.
Yeah, he really can't afford to have these slower kills on these boss fights like he's been getting, because he is about a minute behind, as we identified earlier. We'll see how much further ahead or behind he is after he finishes Swamp and Osse finishes Mire. That'll be another good little check-in point.
Yeah, they'll definitely converge in Turtle Rock.
Oh, Osse. Okay, yeah, Osse was going to dash towards the chest that has the big key, which is the chest after the big chest, but you think, oh, well, you can picture what that chest looks like, and you know that it's surrounded by pegs on the right side and coming from the north. But unless you've been in this situation before in Key Sanity or Spoiler, which doesn't happen very often, you don't always realize that it's also blocked off from this main lobby area, and you can't just walk in that direction. Oh, showing off a door state. Nicely done. So yeah, you do have to flip the switch no matter which direction you come from.
That was a new one for me, I have to admit. I don't really, I haven't seen that particular trick in Mire before.
Yeah, it's the same underlying glitch as the icebreaker glitch. I believe Walther did avoid that net chest, if I'm correct. Might have picked up a spike chest or something like that that Osse didn't get. I'm not sure how he routed that differently. So this could like give Walther a little leeway here on his slow Vitreous kill, assuming Osse gets a quick one. That might kind of even it up, the little bit of slop there in Mire. And again, it feels weird even calling it slop. I mean, it is slop, but it's normally it's not even worth commenting on. But when the race is going to be decided by these little bits of execution, it's notable.
Walther also needs to pick up arrows somewhere along the way. There are some pots with them in Turtle Rock, but gonna have to have those to get up GT.
Yeah, there are also arrows here in Swamp that you might pick up on the NMG route. Walther does play NMG, so he might be thinking about that if he's thinking about his consumables. Osse also having a little bit harder of a time getting that second spooky action glitch. Let's see how his Vitreous fight goes. At 6 hearts, ideally you want to be 7 hearts to do the damage boost strats here, so he's going to have to cut it a little bit short. Double speed like a man of culture.
That's interesting. I was thinking of much ruder terms for it.
Oh my god, this last eyeball just juking. So probably has about the same length of the kill on Vitreous as Walther did. Doesn't run out of arrows, but has a much slower time at the start of that fight. And yeah, if folks are wondering, I think that Osse did not pop on the cape there because his magic bar is so low that, it's a real danger that you run out of magic at the wrong time, and you don't want to take that risk.
Yes, definitely has a lead there. So we'll see where they head. They still don't have the ice rod. It is, possible that it's in Turtle Rock. So if they head there, you have to think it is. Yeah,
so looks like he landed on Death Mountain at about 43:17. We'll see what time Walther gets there. Walther did pick up those NMG arrows in the pot, so he is thinking about his arrow count, which is good to see.
It's going to be a slightly slower one cycle, I think, for Walther.
Walter now collecting his crystal. So yeah, it looks like he might have lost a bit of time there because we're just passing the minute mark now. And he still hasn't pulled out his flute and fluted up Death Mountain. So I think he did probably lose about 15, 20 seconds there in that couple sequence of dungeons.
Yeah, it's still not insurmountable, but gonna probably need Osse to make a slip at some point. Doesn't have to be a huge one, just something to give an opening.
Yeah, I mean, this is between Turtle Rock and GT. Those are very, very hard dungeons to optimize. And even when you do optimize them, it's very hard to do them consistently. So if, you know, if we think about this sort of like an NMG, which we're pretty much at NMG equipment right now, it wouldn't be weird to see with this skill level of runner, a 30-second to even 45-second difference in finish times from one Turtle Rock or Ganon's Tower to the next, you know, between that and their optimal playtime. So there wouldn't even need to be a major slip up as long as you were doing each room to the best of your ability and your opponent wasn't quite getting there. These are very difficult rooms to do optimally. Osse showing off some of these hook strats that are a part of that, but not going for the roller deboost, which I think is very smart when you're on low health, but
yeah, there's a certain chain chomp room coming up here in a moment that hits very, very hard, blue mail or not.
Yeah, and it is quite RNG dependent. So yeah, this is one of the worst patterns, and Osse responding to it with the correct strat, but unfortunately doesn't get it. When the chain chomps are low and they're both flanking you, you basically don't have a choice but to do something strange like pop on the cape or try to go for that double switch hit there with the Samaria block. And so yeah, good heads up on Osse to try to go for the strat even though it didn't land. That is one of the worst RNGs you can get in that room.
And we did see the ice rod in the first chest, so not quite in its, you know, randomizer vanilla laser bridge location, but close enough.
Oh, Walter trying to hookshot through that squeeze there on the crystal rollers. Doesn't quite make it, but is going to pop on the cape for the return trip. If he's picking up that full magic like Osse did, it's free to do that.
And it's just several heart containers short of where Osse is, so it's going to be a much more hazardous trip for Walther.
Both kits almost better RNG, but that chain chomp deletes the Samaria block. Nicely done there.
Like bullet hell dodges around the chain chomp as it charges them there.
Yeah, that was super cool. Osse doing a nice dash laser skip here. Get the final small key that he needed to head to Trinex. Oh, dude, great reaction there from Osse. Oh, if you go for that cane strat, sometimes the RNG can be bad and you might take a hit from that pokey, which obviously you don't want to do. but has the the peace of mind to dash cancel and get the iframes on the blocks, which is not optimal. You don't want to get the iframes on the blocks, so you don't usually go for it every single time. That was just really well done by Osse. Ooh, items a little bit early to the fire rod, unless they just do this every time to avoid the ice floor. Yeah, this is just some credible RNG reaction that we're seeing from both of them. It's just really cool. This is what I think, this is like peak what spoiler tournament is all about, is like seeing this kind of peak gameplay.
And Osse about to grab the 7th crystal there. Just a short walk over to Ganon's tower.
Yeah, crystal catch at about 4940, so we can use that to kind of check in with if Walter gained any time here in Shorter Rock. It's going to be hard for him to gain time over how well Osse executed, but there is little moments here and there Walter can gain time on.
Yeah, looks like he'll be entering GT before Walther gets to Trinex. Gonna go for a fairy refill for safety purposes as well.
Walter doing the walk strat also gets the iframes to go through the pokey. But yeah, we'll lose some time there from picking up that anti-fairy.
I love Spoiler just for moments like, oh, we're just gonna walk past this small key on the torch.
Yeah, it almost looked like Osse paused for a second there. So it might not have even considered if there was a key there, because he's planning on getting other keys already. Walter does have some trouble with Trinex as well, so he's not going to gain any time on the fight, I would imagine.
Yeah, and Dark Magician Room has a 2nd key for Osse and the big key, so has all he needs, can go straight up.
All right. Crystal catch from Walter on 5135. It's not going to be an exact analog because Walter did item to hookshot, which, well, I believe Osse didn't. But, you know, that's just a few seconds, so. Oh, getting bullied here a little bit. I mean, it does have powder, but down to 3 hearts at the start of the gauntlet climb is not what you want. Oh, no. It takes a spike hit as well.
Unfortunately, I think he'll be alarmed by the beeping.
Interesting to see that Osse did not stop by the safety room. It is common that you might, like in a spoiler tournament, kind of check in with where your opponent's at and maybe play a little bit more safe than you might normally if you have a significant enough lead. In this case, Osse does, that he could have safely gotten that safety room, but it could also just be a sign of respect. Like, I do not feel confident that Walter cannot gain that time over me just by pure execution in the rest of Gauntlet's Tower.
Yeah, he may also just not be watching the race and not know that he's got a, reasonable lead.
Yeah, that is also true.
Or, worry about their concentration. We have chat asking about bottles. I will just say the bottles in this seed were very out of the way. So he is going to stop and powder this anti-fairy and get out of the danger zone there.
Yeah, that was... Oh man, I almost got a heart attack there. I would hate to see the lead change because of like a death in the gauntlet. So part of why Osse was so low health, I believe, is because, oh god, Walter getting trolled by this Mimic, is because he did decide to damage boost across the spikes, if I remember correctly, which saves a lot of time over what Walter just did. But Walter does not have the extra health to do what Osse did.
And probably that was maybe Walther's best chance to get ahead, was if Osse had taken a death there. But still room if something does go wrong the rest of the way up or against Ganon.
Yeah, of course, no one would like to win that way. It always feels bad if you take a win because your opponent like died in Ganon's tower or something.
That was also
I mean,
just very bad because Osse used his last bit of magic to light that last one after missing with the lamp on the first try.
Yeah, that could have sucked. Luckily, it's easy enough to recover. You just fall down to the floor below and get the full magic, but...
Yeah, but it's still a loss of time that you don't really want.
Yeah, and Walter now climbing his gauntlet almost through it as Osse is on Moldorm 2. Walter also, we can't hear the beeps, but he was just on a heart and a half there as well. So I had to top up on this anti-fairy.
I think that was just a double. Unfortunately, the second and third balls seemed to hit simultaneously.
Oh my god. That pattern with blue balls, and Osse manages to get a double. I am very impressed. I think that's a very hard double to get that he just got there.
That was a nice Aga 2 fight, and heading in for the Ganon fight. Just needs to get through this, and he can claim the victory. We'll really want to get the torch glitch here. It's going to be very important, or else he's going to be doing this fight using that lamp.
Yeah, that would really slow him down. Probably would not make the difference in the run, but it would definitely give Walter a lot of space here. Nice 1-in-1. Yeah, we were talking about, I mentioned this early on in the race, but, you know, while Nurse and I were looking through the log along with our tracker Arc and a restreamer, we were commenting on how the sub 1 was maybe just barely possible, though it was quite tight, and we're seeing that now. Osse has the opportunity to get that sub 1. I think Walter might be just shut out from it because he has to do a silverless fight and he hasn't done Aga 2 yet, but yeah, it was like just kind of barely possible to do it with this seed.
Yeah, and some really excellent execution on both sides. I do think Osse's going to pull this out here as he goes through his silverless hits. Getting a lot of triples here, too.
Yeah, some of these triples are not easy. Like this pattern, top right, he almost got it, but didn't quite make it.
It's that first hit. I think he missed that one, too. But there's the last hit. So get your GGs in chat for Osse as he finishes up the fight and the seed.
And Walter finishing the Aga fight, he did also get that very difficult double, but did get an additional cycle from missing an earlier hit, it looks like, on Aga. But now flying in to Ganon himself. He's got to play a little more cautious than Osse because he's coming in here with 5.5 hearts. Walter misses the trident spin, so he's not going to get a 1-in-1 today.
Yeah, that's a nice position to finish out phase 2 there.
Yeah, you can wedge yourself in comfortably to get 3 double spins. Oh no, he hook shots right in the middle of the circle. Walter.
He's also going to menu over to the lamp to go for the torch glitch here.
Yeah, at this point, you just want to not not fall. Just finish out the game strong. I actually don't know. I mean, I know that Walter can do the fire rod torch glitch, but from my memory, this is normal for Walter. Like with the choice, I think he does go for the lamp torch glitch, even when in a competitive scenario.
Yeah, the punishment for missing it is just really high, and getting it with the lamp is just a lot easier.
This looks like this will be a triple.
I think only a couple of hits left. And down goes Ganon.
And Walter standing in front of the doorway.
His official time is going to be a little bit longer. The seed doesn't technically end until he walks in, but that's okay.
Yeah, it's okay. But yeah, we are now joined by Osse. Are we saying that right, Osse? I feel bad I didn't ask you before the match.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. Good game.
Yeah, this was a good race. Nice matchup.
Yeah, I felt like definitely one of the closer. I don't think it's the absolute closest we've had in the spoiler tournament so far, but definitely one of the closer matches we've had. And yeah, just like it was really cool to see your RNG reaction to a lot of those rooms there. Yeah, very tightly executed. And also joined by Walter. Oh, he had to reconnect to IRC again. That's why he didn't walk through the room.
Oh yeah, yeah. I realized then. Apparently, I got kicked out of the room at some point of the game.
Good games, man.
Yeah, GG's. I can't say I'm too disappointed with this result. I made it like sort of close at least, so I think that's good enough for me.
Yeah, it was really exciting to watch. It's really cool to see a race that's not decided by, what I would characterize as a blunder, either like a routing blunder or, a death or something like that. It was just characterized by, routing a bit, and also just, clean execution, I think was probably the biggest thing, which we saw really come to play at the end of this match here. In the last 2 Crystal Dungeons, we were measuring this, Walter, so I hate to rub salt in the wound, but it was like, a minute and a half difference, and then the last 2 Crystal Dungeons, that gap widened by maybe 20 more seconds, and then between Turtle Rock and Ganon's Tower, that gap widened to a total of 3 minutes. It's really easy to like miss and say, oh, it's because in Rando people would say, oh well, Osse got this thing before Walter, and they would just chalk it up to routing, but you can't really do that in spoiler races. So it's really cool to be able to like actually shout out the execution differences, which so often can be very invisible. Like it's really hard to see.
Speaking of shoutouts, I'd like to give another shout out to Osse because I didn't have time to check any hard containers whatsoever. So all my hard containers was the ones I saw him picking up on the stream.
Nice strategy.
Yeah, that's some Gerdo strats right there, Walter.
Well, After the previous spoiler tournament, I found that I got my spoiler reading time down, so I have more time to route in safeties now.
Yeah, that's actually a question I was going to ask for both of you. Is like, what was it like the study period time? Was there a point where you hit a wall or had to solve some problem during the study period time?
So I made my route, and then I thought I had a mistake in it. I thought I needed the book for desert to get hookshot for something, but by the time the race started, I fixed that. I realized.
Yeah, the only real, I feel like routing mistake I did was picking up the mirror so early. I think I could have done it like after the boots at least, so I could have like rushed all the way over there instead of walking. But I did want to have it before getting the myths, so I could do like Pod and Eastern together. And I probably should have done Swamp before Meyer if I realized how low I was on arrows.
Yeah, we were commenting about that in the booth that I'm not actually sure which way is faster. I mean, it had more consequences than I thought. Like when you picked up the mirror, there's actually quite a few things that it affected, but I'm not really sure because you did get to route in Sahasrara along with Pod and Eastern.
Yeah,
but you didn't get to do Ice Palace along with Mirror. So,
I mean, I could have done it if I was gonna pick up the mirror before the Ice Palace part. I could have done it after saving quitting from Catfish with the boots, so at least I would have been faster to get over there.
Right.
And then you can use like you could do like a water walk and get over to Kakariko from there, and just go into the Dark World again.
Oh yeah, that would be an interesting route.
Yeah, we were actually looking at the log a little before the race, and it seemed like more of a mess than most of the spoil logs, much less linear necessarily at the start. Did you struggle at all finding that initial route, or did it just kind of line up once you'd laid everything out?
I mean, I'm not super used with doing these, so it was a little bit extra stressful having a bunch of like extra items like cape and powder and stuff like that to think about.
Early game, I don't think it seemed to me that you should just go to where the items are. Couldn't really fit things together, and so I was just targeting boots off the start, and that just meant get your Dark World and then go to the Swamp Portal. So I just prioritized boots, I guess.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The earlier you get it, the better. But yeah, it was really cool to watch this race. Very good execution between you two, and cool to see a very close one.
Lately I've been focusing on my execution a lot, playing the All Dungeons tournament last month. But I haven't played a whole lot of Randomizer. So I did expect to have an execution edge in this race. And then got to GT and went down to 1 heart.
Yeah, that was so scary.
Didn't want to lose my lead to that.
Were you watching the broadcast?
No, I wasn't.
Okay. Because we were in the booth, we were commenting, like, because at that point you had about a 3-minute or maybe a little bit less than that, but close to lead over Walter. And we were like, oh my God, he didn't take the safety room. We were so nervous.
I find that the gauntlet, a lot of the enemies drop hearts. So if you just don't take too many hits, then you can get through it. But then I took a lot of hits.
Yeah.
And then I also did the fast Was it the spike floor at the start of GT?
Yeah, we were commenting on that. Yeah, Walter took a much slower route, but yeah, that's what
I only do
led
that
you to
if I
so much
have
health.
enough hearts and powder.
Anything else you want to throw in, Mercer, before we wrap this up?
Yeah, I'll just give a shout out to our tracker again, Dark Diplomat, as well as Kern for co-commenting, and say give both our runners a follow. They're both really good at this game and a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, oh, actually, it's our broadcaster is Dark Diplomat. Today, our tracker was Arc.
Oh, I put that backwards. I'm sorry.
That's all right. I think you had Dark Diplomat as a tracker on an earlier race, so I can't hold it against you. But yeah, very well done. Definitely follow their channels if you want to see more peak play like this. It was really cool to see. Best of luck to you guys in the tournament.
Yeah, thanks. GG's. Looking forward for like round 5 when maybe I can get a win.
Lol. All right, it's been a pleasure as always, Mercer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just going to take a quick gander real quick to let you know about the other matches that are coming up here for the spoiler tournament. There is one between Simo and Sinak, sorry, that's coming up in about an hour here on SG. Later tonight, we have Dante versus Daja, which that should be pretty lit, close match. I would imagine their skill level is relatively close. Also followed up by Relkin versus Kyong today, and Yield Fart Gamer versus Pork Collector. Oh yeah, and SailorNet versus Orange. And it looks like all of them are being restreamed today if we can find teams for them. So there are quite a few matches here for your Saturday afternoon / evening / morning / whatever time it happens to be for you. So yeah, tune in for those. And thanks for joining us. Have a good night, y'all.